Welcome to WatchGuard Security Week in Review, a security podcast dedicated to quickly summarizing the biggest information and network security stories each week. I'm Corey Nachreiner, your host, and this is the episode for the week starting June 25th, 2012. Overall, this week seemed to be a quieter week as far as security is involved. There were some security stories, but no really major ones. I'll start with an interesting old Trojan that's actually making new waves. This week, a number of AV researchers and media outlets reported about a Trojan called Millicent. Millicent is actually a Trojan that many AV vendors discovered way back in 2010. It's a typical Trojan that might arrive via email or over a website, and when it affects your computer, it delivers adware or ads to your computer. However, this Trojan reared its ugly head again this week and caused some havoc for a lot of US and European-based businesses. Among other things, the Trojan seems to inject a corrupted print file into your printer queue. So if you have a network printer, it starts to print out reams and reams of gobbledygook characters on your printer. And according to reports, thousands of companies this week had this happen to their network printers. That said, there's nothing overly unique about this malware. If you have AV and you keep it up to date, you're probably safe. It was just kind of humorous to see all the stories this week of various businesses having problems with their printers, printing out tons and tons of junk. This week, we saw more evidence that Apple seems to be changing their stance on computer security for the good. A few weeks ago, you may remember me mentioning that they had subtly changed some of their marketing pages where they seemed to claim that they were invulnerable to viruses or worms, and they changed those pages to reflect more along the lines that OS X was designed with security in mind. Well, this week we see some more evidence that Apple seems to be taking security seriously. Some of the developers previewing Mountain Lion, which is the upcoming version of OS X, found that Mountain Lion seems to have silent security updates enabled. This means the operating system will check for security updates daily, and it will also silently download and install them on your computer without any interaction. The goal being to keep OS X up to date and patched so that it doesn't suffer against the latest vulnerability. So this seems to be another sign that Apple is moving in the right direction as far as handling security incidents and security vulnerabilities. I commend them for this change and hope they continue in the right direction. Another quick story that seems to happen at least once every month. This month, Google Chrome released yet another version of Chrome, the popular browser, to fix a bunch of security vulnerabilities. Specifically, Chrome 20 fixes around 20 to 23 vulnerabilities, depending on whose count you trust. And a lot of these vulnerabilities are critical. I believe at least 14 of them are critical vulnerabilities that attackers can leverage in drive-by download attacks. These are things like flaws in the way Google processes video files like .mkv files, or flaws in how they process PDF files. Now the good news is Chrome is very good at auto-updating on its own. It should silently download and install updates on its own. So if you have Chrome, hopefully you're already up to date. But you might want to go to Help About, check your Chrome version, and make sure you're running version 20. The biggest story this week was probably McAfee's disclosure of a malware campaign they call Operation High Roller. Operation High Roller is a malware campaign where a group of seemingly organized criminals automated some of the normal banking malware that's out there today. You might have heard of some botnets called SpyEye or Zeus, which are heavily focused on stealing banking credentials and helping attackers then use those credentials to make banking transactions and steal your money. In a nutshell, really the difference that McAfee pointed out in Operation High Roller is this group of attackers they found seems to be automating a lot of what Zeus and SpyEye attackers had to do manually. They're still using things like Zeus and SpyEye and Zitmo and other normal banking malware, but they're automating some of the account transaction and some of the mule operations themselves in the cloud and creating systems where once they can hijack a computer, as soon as you log on to the bank, they'll automatically use systems to make an account transaction using your system and steal your money immediately. Essentially, according to this document, McAfee found a lot of European banks being targeted with this. They also noticed that these attackers seemed to be targeting victims that had big bank accounts, which is why they called it Operation High Roller. They targeted all kinds of banks, from really first-tier high-end banks to small banks and credit unions, but they seemed to be going after some victims that had big bankrolls. So really, there's not a lot new here other than the automation techniques they're using. It still is very similar malware. The takeaway is, one, make sure to do your online banking securely. Make sure to have strong passwords. You should definitely use multiple tokens of authentication if you can. Even though a lot of this malware is designed to try to steal your other tokens as well, it's still good to use multiple tokens. But really, your overall defense is defense in depth. You need to make sure you have firewalls, that you have antivirus, and that you have IPS, so that you have the best possibility of not only blocking banking malware from getting within your network, but also of discovering banking malware on your systems once it gets in. And of course, WatchGuard's XTM appliances and our XCS appliances can help with this. So let's finish off this episode with a few bits of good news, both having to do with authorities catching and prosecuting the hackers we're always talking about. The first piece of news is the LulzSec attackers that authorities caught a few weeks ago. These are two teenage attackers. One of them's named Ryan Cleary. I think he might be 17 or 19. Well, anyways, authorities caught these hackers a few months ago, and this week both of these LulzSec hackers actually pled guilty to various computer fraud charges. So it's the first step to punishing them for their various crimes. The second piece of good news is the FBI, in partnership with some other global authorities, did a sting that caught 24 different computer hackers and fraudsters. Essentially, a long time ago, the FBI kind of gained access to one of the popular underground carding sites or carding forums. These are forums where attackers that steal credit card credentials or cards share this data or sell this data with other people to monetize it. The FBI caught this forum a long time ago, but then set it up as a sting operation where they lurked on the forum as new carders got on and tried to do these malicious transactions. This week, the FBI reported that they caught 24 different attackers and fraudsters using this sting operation. I believe 6 of them were UK-based and 11 were based in the USA. So personally, I find this very encouraging. If you look back a few years, it seemed many of the network or internet-based attacks went unanswered for. Things like spam or malware that stole money, attackers were never found. Authorities couldn't seem to cross the different global lines they needed to cooperate and catch these bad guys, nor could they even find them. So seeing all these cases where the authorities are actually finding and prosecuting these attackers is a great thing, and I hope it continues. Well, that covers this week's security stories in a nutshell. If you'd like to keep daily track of these type of security stories, be sure to check me out on Twitter. I'm @SecAdept. And you can also follow our WatchGuard blog at watchguardsecuritycenter.com. Thank you for watching, and as usual, here at WatchGuard, we're rooting for you.